Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. We have a couple of people that join. Um, we are waiting. I think there's some connection issues with someone in the start, but let's hope that will be better.
Should be resolved soon.
Yeah.
I can't see the list of attendees, but I'm guessing you can see that we have. Yeah,
We have attendees.
that's great. That's good to know.
Um, we are waiting for Kristin as well.
Yeah, she is the person from DNV who will
Yeah.
be presenting with us. But maybe while we're waiting for her, Eric, we should just quickly introduce ourselves.
Yeah, I can start sharing the presentation.
Mhm.
Share. And when you do that, I will just help Kristin in.
Yeah. So what we'll be talking about today is, of course, about best practice recruitment. The reason we're hosting this is because DNV has, of course, come up with a new updated standard for best practice recruitment. And that is something you can get certified in the Norwegian market. But of course, the standards that it sets and the expectations it has good. You all can use that in your recruitment work as well. And I think it will be interesting for you to hear what we see as the current level of best practice recruitment that all good recruiters should strive towards. Eric will be back shortly. My name is Stefan. I'm from a company called Master. My name is Stefan Brostad. I'm from Master. We run classes around best practice recruitment. We're also working with psychometric tools. I'm in Master Management in Norway. Master is headquartered in Denmark. That's where we have our psychometrists. That's where we develop our tests. But we also have presence in many other countries around the world. So if after this you want to learn more about Master, just contact me or and I will set you in touch with the right person in the right region. So that's going to be great. I'm amongst other things, I run classes for best practice recruitment, and that's one of the things we're going to talk more about today. But yeah, so that's quickly about me. Eric, you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yes. So Kristin, I will come back to her. She has some login issues. But my name is Eric. I'm country manager of Sperton Norway. I'm also the global responsible for Sperton's recruitment processes and systems. I also work close with DNV on the recruitment standard and is a part of the committee. So I have helped make the new standard and find this field really interesting. Yeah, that's the basis about me. Then we have a question, Stefan. Is our standards a recipe for how to do recruitment? Can you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's a question that often comes up when you talk about these recruitment standards. People think it's something like a recipe. In the same vein, very often when you talk about best practice recruitment, people say, I should always include standard structured interviews, for instance. And while a lot of these things are often good to include, a standard doesn't tell you how you should always do recruitment. It tells you how to think about the recruitment and the main points you should be aware of. Of course, if you need someone to do something quickly by tomorrow, then other things become more important. Now I see Kristin came into the room as well, so maybe Kristin should just quickly be allowed to introduce herself.
Thank you very much, and so sorry for the delay. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristin Morisbach, and I'm head of the Personnel Certification Department at DNV. So that means I'm responsible for all the development and management of all our person certification schemes. And I also serve as the technical manager for our accreditation. I've previously worked as a lead auditor in management system certification. So I have some fairly thorough knowledge of standards and managing certification. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome in. So we just started to talk about the standards, and we can go for a new question. Why we have a standard? And it's not a recipe directly, but it's a guide. It's should give you help as a recruiter on how to do recruitment, how to make sure that you follow a process that is well documented, and that you are involving all the necessary steps in the process. It will help you with the quality assurance, with good communication, and making sure that both clients, if you're a recruitment firm, or departments, if you're internal, and the candidates are well taken care of, and that you search for the correct candidate to the correct job. So we have some topics there. This is just some examples, but recruitment is maybe one of the most important things we do in a company. There's many important things for sure, but if we have the wrong persons on the team or in the company, it will be hard with growth. So by the wrong person can be an issue. Also, as I said, standard ensures structured, very clear process for everyone, and it reduces risk and discrimination. It's a lot of talk about discrimination these days, and it's a key. Everyone in the process that apply should be treated fairly and be reviewed on who they are and not other things.
And of course, the main reason for this is, I mean, there are two reasons. One is to not discriminate the individuals. But for a company as well, it's about getting the right people. And if you discriminate, you might be losing the good people because you're not even considering them for various wrong reasons. Or you might not be inviting them for interviews. They might not even apply because of how the ad is written. So this is all stuff that goes into the standard, of course.
100%. So a good process will build trust throughout the whole process with candidates, customers, clients, internally and externally. And we have some examples on standards. Kirsten, can you take us through this?
Yes, I can. Thank you. As I said, I have some previous experience with a few of these standards. So ISO 10667, ISO is the international standard for, the International Standardization Organization. That's what the ISO stands for. So it's a global international organization that is in charge of developing a lot of standards on a lot of different topics. And 10667 is a standard for assessment services. So it addresses assessment process itself. And typically companies who are certified to this standard are recruitment companies that deliver these type of services for clients. There is another international standard called 30405. It's the standard for recruitment. And it's good to note that this is not a certifiable standard. It's more of a guideline. It might become certifiable in the future, but as of now, it's not. There's also the EFPA framework, which is a European framework for certifying assessment tools. So the actual personality or ability tests that are used in certain recruitment processes. ISO 9001 quality management, maybe some of you listening have this certification on the company level. And then there's the DNV standard for recruiters, which is the one we're focusing on today. So that's just a short sample of different standards that may be familiar to some of you.
And the ISO and the EFPA, that is for companies, while the DNV is a personal certificate.
Yes, actually the FPA, just a clarification, is for a product. So it's not the company, it's the product itself. Yeah.
And DNV does have a specific certification for the Norwegian and Swedish and international market for according to the EPA framework as well for the tools.
Yes. Yes.
And we also have internal standards. And we, Sperton, a recruitment firm, we have our own internal standard, but it's based on these others. We are ISO 9001 certificated, and we have based our internal standard on ISO 3405, on DNV, and on the ISO 9001. But we have not changed, but we have adjusted it so it follows our needs and our process, so we can make sure that our company are following the same way of. And just to say something about DNV as well, because DNV is not only Norwegian, it's Norwegian, but you are in many countries, Kristin.
Yes, thank you. We are a global company dealing with assurance and risk management. We are an independent foundation, actually, started up in 1864. And we are more than 15,000 employees worldwide, and we have more than 100 offices around the world. So yes, we have quite a global reach. And our main focus is, of course, helping customers to minimize risk and improve their processes in many different areas. We have some might know us from the maritime side. Whenever they hear of DNV, if you've heard about us, you might think of ships and classification, but we do work in a lot of different business areas as well. So with energy and digital solutions, and also the certification business, which I represent. So that's we are, like you say, global. And that's why it's also fun to be a part of this webinar to talk a little bit about what we're going to try and do in the future in this area to hit the global market. And just to say shortly about the DNV standard, this is a standard for recruitment and recruitment processes that was developed in collaboration with the industry. So it wasn't we who initiated the process. It was a sort of joint effort from a lot of different specialists and people with diverse interests in the area who wanted to try and define a minimum standard and best practice for recruitment. So in the process, as you're seeing here on this slide, you can see who have been involved in the update of the standard that we've done now recently. And these are representatives from a vast different sort of sides of recruitment. You have representatives like Erik, who is part of sort of the representing a company delivering these services. We've also had participants who deliver the services within their own organization, and also people who are more technical experts. So our responsibility at DNV, I am no recruitment specialist. Our responsibility has been sort of to manage the project of updating the standard. We're responsible for the structure, the overall coordination, and making sure that we had some speedy delivery. And that will be our role moving forward also. I don't know if you want to say something, Erik, about the participants.
Yeah, so so this is the standard, and it's for Norway and Sweden in the start. It's we'll come back to that, but hopefully will come for the European market as well. But even if it's a Norwegian standard, the Norwegian standard will be translated, so it can be used as a guideline for others and participants in this meeting, even if you are not in Norway and Sweden. And I want to say that, so it's been a really, the group that has been working with the standard. We started to look at the 3405 standard, that is the ISO, and based this one. And we had some really good discussions in the group. We will not always agree, but that is because we are sitting on different sides, see things differently. I think that represents also the global, it is different from company to company. A small company will look at recruitment different from a big company, etc., etc. But I came into the group I want to say 1 minute about that because it was a funny way to come in. I wanted to be DNV certificated in 2023, and I failed the test, and I was not happy with that for sure. I sent an email to one of Kristin's colleagues and said that I didn't agree, but because I felt that the standard were too focused on internal recruitments in big companies and not for a recruitment company like I am or was. Then we agreed, and they looked at my exam again, and I passed. And I said that going forward, I want to help to get this more balanced. So that was the start for me getting into the committee, even if it took 1.5 years because there was no process updating it. But it's a need to update now and then because things are changed.
Yeah.
So that's a way in. But Kristin, what is the certification and the standard? If you say a couple of words about that.
Yeah, so certification, some of you might already know this, but what is a certification process? It's really an independent assessment. And as we've already mentioned, it could be a management system, it could be a product, or it could be a person, but it's not really the person, it's the person's competence. So we do the assessment to confirm compliance with requirements that are defined in the standard. So to do a certification, you need a standard that sets the requirement, and you need an independent party, that is where we come in, to assess and verify that the requirements are complied with. So in terms of personnel certification for recruiters, it's really the assessment of the recruiter's competence that we are testing, and we do so through an exam, a written exam. That's one part of it, and then of course there is some documentation on work experience and other requirements that come into it. But it's really the exam that's the main sort of tool we have for testing your knowledge. And if you pass, then we will be able to certify you. Then we have tested that you are compliant with the competence requirements. Yeah.
And so this is why the DNV standard is relevant. But if we take a broader look and see why is recruitment standard relevant? Because it's basically covering both.
Yes.
Kristin?
Do you want to go ahead, Erik?
I can do it. So the DNV standard are used in many government tenders, but also in globally. We know that many tendered companies want to the recruiter to have, for example, an ISO 9001 in the baseline. And it shows, if you have a following standard, it shows that you have expertise in the process. The certification is your stamp. If you are DNV certificated, it's a stamp that you can do it. But also for a company, you will be able to show that you are following the good guidelines. And also, it's a good language through the recruitment industry. So making sure that everyone sort of talks the same language and in some way follows the same process.
And that is what historically people have found sometimes a bit confusing with the DNV standard, is that some people might know these things, but they don't have the same language for it. And this ensures that people actually use the same language for things like predictive validity, which we'll come back to. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it has a specific meaning in recruitment that's good to know. And that's where the language can actually make it a lot easier to communicate about recruitment in a good way.
Absolutely. And when we started to make the new updated standard, we started to look at the ISO 3405. Can you say something about that process, Kristin?
Yes, I can. Because of being DNV and working with standards on a daily basis, we really wanted to try and bring our own sort of homemade developed standard more aligned with the ISO structure. And when the ISO 3405 was published, it's not very old, it's only been out for a few years, we decided it would be good to try and sort of bring our standard according to the structure that the ISO brings. So we have structured the chapters accordingly so that you can recognize from 3.1 to 3.7, these follow the structure of the ISO. However, the ISO standard being just a guideline, it's very sort of it's not so detailed. So our standard brings a lot more sort of meat to the bone in terms of the requirements. But yes, we decided to do this also to prepare for the event of the ISO standard being further developed and becoming certifiable. Then we can say, you know, we are aligned with what is the international best practice standard. Mm.
While we're on this, Eric, we can mention a couple of things. First of all, the fact that when you hear the word chapter, you might think that this means that there's a lot of text. It's chapters are more like headings with sub bullet points, and we will show a bit more about how this works. But if you look at this from 3.1 to 3.7, they really if you go back to the one with the so back 2 slides, please. You can see that it starts talking about around recruitment. This is the general thinking about recruitment. It includes points such as should recruitment be connected with or not should it, recruitment should be connected with a company's wider strategy, and a bit about that. It then follows basically a common recruitment process from the start, preparation, planning, doing a job analysis, through attraction, the employer branding, ensuring you get the right candidates, assessment, including interviews, testing, decision-making and verification. So how do you actually make sense of the information you gather, and how do you do reference checks? Pre-boarding, onboarding. Yep, the recruitment's not done when the candidate signs. The pre-boarding and onboarding is an important part. And I also love that we have the point 3.7 here, which is about the learning and continuous improvement. So that is about having you as a recruiter think about, hey, how did we actually do? What can we do better? Because that's a key point in this standard is, and that goes back to is it a recipe? It's a standard. So the recipe can be improved, and that's where this point comes in.
And also on the last point, it's for you as a person to develop yourself and follow, read, understand, be updated to what's new in today's market.
Exactly.
And also to make the DNV standard relevant and easy to use, we did some split on the levels on what we expect from each line or each variable in the standard. And A is the easiest level. If a level is A, it should be, or if verification area is A, it should be. You should know it. You should be able to give examples, but not use it fully. B, you should be able to explain and talk about it and demonstrate your understanding. And C is where you have to be able to use it in a bit more depth. Anything to add
and
to
maybe
that?
I can add a little bit, Eric, also. The reason we introduced this sort of competency level on the requirements in the standard is also to help whoever wants to use the standard and wants to prepare for a certification, possibly, to know where do I really need to have more thorough knowledge and where is it sufficient to just like you say, be aware. And we didn't have this indication previously. And I think some of the candidates who sat the exam were a bit surprised at the sort of depth of knowledge we expected them to show in certain areas. Now we have made that much more clear, and it helps us to show, you know, what are really the critical competency areas that must be present and that you must show to become certified. And also if you want to work according to the standard without certification. So I think this is a really, really good update we've done, also helping for the use of the standard. It becomes clearer.
We have some examples on A, B, and C, basically. And this is how the standard is set up. So I think it's 4 or 5 pages of sentences like this. That is, some may say, some is B, some is C, and that the standard is that you need to follow or understand. So, Kristin, can you take us through A, B, and C?
Yes, and I just want to make another, I see now a small mistake on the slide, because it shouldn't say a recruiter should. When it's a standard, a recruiter must. So these are must, not should requirements if you want to be certified. So just a tiny little technical correction there. But if you see, when it comes to decision and verification, we talked about background checks. So 351, you need to be familiar. That's level A. Different methods, different types, and understand how they can be used. The next step, which is B, you have to be able to explain the purpose of the background check. And then in level C, you really need to be able to apply it. So that means, you know, formulating relevant questions and doing a structured and professional reference check. So this really shows how we build the sort of depth of knowledge, and it should make it easier for everyone to adapt and to adhere to these requirements. You know, it's but they are all must.
It's all must. That's right.
Yes.
This is new topics to the DNV standard, but it's also some new standard, new areas that would be important for recruiters. So if you're using the standard, DNV standard or not, this is areas that will, it's important that you understand and can use in your line of work. We have, can you say something about the AI and automation, what we have picked up here, Kristin?
Yes, as you're probably all very well aware, AI is really becoming more and more joined in with all our processes at work and as a private person and everything. So of course, AI has already been taken into a lot of recruitment processes. There are companies that are already applying AI tools in their processes. So what we have focused on in our standard is not, of course, very deep technical knowledge of AI agents and how to set them up. It's really more an awareness, and the awareness of what risks may be introduced when using AI. If you remember at the start, both Stefan and Erik talked about fair process, not discriminating. There are, of course, certain risks when using AI agents and tools. You can gain some efficiencies, but you may also lose some things. And the focus in the standard is what are the risks, and to be aware and to be able to ask the question, you know, are there any AI agents used here? What are they? What purpose? So it's kind of on a high level at the minute. And then this is something, an area of the standard that we will have to evolve as the world evolves. But it was important to bring it in because it's already here. Yeah.
The search was important for me to get in because it wasn't there. And many in the recruitment business do active sourcing of candidates. So do you have the applicants that apply for a job in when it's posted, and you have the sourcing where the recruiter actively source for candidates. that's two different sides of the attraction area. And we know that this varies a lot from country to country, or even from region to region, where in Asia, it's more applicants, so it's more important to use automations and AI to understand the candidates, especially automations, maybe, to understand and select candidates based on that. While in US, Europe, it's the sourcing is more important than in Asia. Is what I see when I work globally with sourcing. And to source is not easy. There's important to follow a standard. You have to represent a company in a good way. You have to respect the candidate. It's a lot of communication in that process, and the candidate should get feedback, for example, when you reach out, etc.
Yeah. Not least, there are legal standards that are important to remember that apply specifically here when it comes to, for instance, gathering information about people. So it's important to be aware of what information you're allowed to gather about people, how you're allowed to store it, and all of that, both in an ethical way and a legal way.
And the EU Pay Directive, Stefan.
Yes.
Can you say something about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a new directive on pay transparency that has been introduced in the EU. EU countries are still struggling to actually implement it in law, but they are working at that, and it will be implemented in EU countries, meaning it will probably affect people in non-EU countries as well. There are a few main points that people doing recruitment need to know about. This has wider HR implications that I won't go into. But for recruitment, as it says there, one of the main things is that you have to include a salary range before the first interview, often in job postings. But of course, if you do active search, well, then you have to inform the candidates about the pay, the salary range before you actually invite them to an interview. And the salary range needs to be related to what you're actually looking for as well. So you need to show that you're not just making something up and saying you want to give someone a better salary just because they're more senior doesn't cut it anymore. It has to be related to actual, they're more senior in this specific technology, for instance. Another thing that will affect people doing recruitment is that in the EU, it will actually become forbidden to ask what people's salary is today. Instead, you're still allowed to ask what's your expected salary. Of course, sometimes candidates will mention their salary today, but that means that the goal is, of course, that people's salaries should be related to the skills they offer, not their previous salary or completely non-important factors such as gender or things like that.
So even if it's not active in all countries yet, this directive, it's smart to change some things. Not ask for the current salary, ask what they expect. That can be, you can start to use that from today's basically.
And having worked with recruitment, and I've worked for many years in Asia as well, doing a lot of search, by the way, but that was because I was working with IT positions. But I saw positions fall through because the salary was not sorted out at an early enough stage. And of course, it's a bit of taboo. When should you start talking about it? A lot of candidates feel that, oh, they don't want to ask about it. Actually bringing it up earlier means it's going to be more efficient for you as well. This pay transparency will make the processes easier and more predictable for everyone involved. So it's best practice, not only because it's the law, but because it actually is best practice to do better recruitment.
And it also connects to a realistic job preview, because part of a job is the salary. So, but also other things about the realistic job preview is to not sell something that is not correct. So when a candidate apply for a job, they should get as good picture of the job as possible. to make sure that when they start the job on the other end, that they actually start in the job that they have expected. So it's that the areas, that the culture and everything is communicated early, so there's no breach in that communication is important. Something to add, Stefan?
No, I think that was perfect. It is exactly that. It is about giving candidates the right information throughout. And the great thing, if you actually want to include this, it will force you to do a better job analysis at the very beginning, because then you need to know about what you're actually looking for and what you actually have to offer. So thinking about this will also help the whole process improve.
And the recruitment doesn't stop with signing an employment contract. It's actually pre-boarding first and then the onboarding phase. That's important to get the candidate from applicant to a person that can do employee that can produce for the client. That can be a process. Sometimes there are notice time, etc. So the pre-boarding process can be 1 to 6 months. Sometimes it's sometimes quite long, and what to do in that period, and also the onboarding, how to take them on board and make sure that they are helped to succeed in a job. So it's not a big area, this onboarding, pre-boarding in the standard in DME, but it's important. Companies can also have more of that on their internal standards and see how do we want to pre-board them.
And at the very least, just bear it in mind, because candidates often talk about this black hole where they just have to wait between accepting a position and starting, and filling that black hole with some good information, some good things can make a world of difference.
Yeah. When you hire someone yourself, we recommend to use a structured method to document and use documented predictive validity in the process. And we'll come a bit back to the methods that we can use, Stefan, on the slide later. But to use different methods in the process is a key. And make sure that you have a good basis when you're going to take the decision. And also set requirements for the process, not just for the candidate. So if you in the start of the process, you have to do a job analysis together with the hiring manager in company or whatever, and make sure that, okay, this is the process, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're going to do to make sure to have a full process. Anything to add?
Perfect.
And also using an external recruiter. If you as a company want to hire us, Sperton, for example, as your external recruiter, recruitment company, ask about our methodology, not just our experience. How do we actually use our knowledge to help to find the right candidate? Request proof of expertise. A certification is that is a quality mark, and in practice, the DNV certification, that is a personal job knowledge test for a recruiter. So should in some way document that the recruiter have the basis they need to do a good recruitment process for you as a client. I want to talk a bit about best practice recruitment, Stefan.
Yeah. I mean, best practice recruitment is a bit of a big term, but of course the point here is to do recruitment in a way where you ensure that you get the best person for the job and the best job for the person, and also ensure that the candidates, even those who get rejected, get a good experience. So that's sort of the things that go around it. Here are some tips, but let's just skip this slide and go over to the next one, I think, because these are more just some small things you can do, but we've talked about predictive validity, and I want to just quickly get into that. What does that mean? Predictability is one of those weird words, but it basically means how good tool for selection is to predict future job performance. This can be researched on in a lot of different ways, and you have a ton of studies out there where people have seen for their specific company, for their specific organization, they've done studies, but the problem is they are, of course, a bit all over the place. Then you had these researchers called Schmidt and Hunter, who created a huge meta study. They were actually the people who sort of created the field of meta study, which means they do a study of a lot of studies. They looked at a lot of different studies, and so what stuff that these have in common, what's something that's relevant across a number of positions. Their study came out many years ago. It was, but in 2022, you had a huge new study from Sackett and a bunch of other researchers, where they really went in depth on this again. For those of you who know Schmidt and Hunter, what Sackett and his co-authors found was basically that the predictability for everything fell. In what you see here, you see a lot of numbers and you see some words. The numbers basically, if it's 1, it means that it would 100% predict future job performance. And nothing really would get up there.
That's not possible.
The higher the number, the better it is at predicting future job performance. To say it in an overly simplified way, and for those of you who think, that's not really correct, yeah, I know, but bear with me, it's sort of like that. And we see those 3 tools that have the highest predictive validity. That's structured interviews, job knowledge tests, and work samples. Now, they are very high, as you can see, compared to the others, but it's important to remember that these are job-specific metrics. They're directly related to the job requirements, and they would often be very specific for the job at hand. A structured interview means that you should ask the same questions to all the candidates and score the candidates in the same way. A lot of people forget that last part, but it's a super important part of structured interviews, that you should score them in the same way. But that should, of course, be related to the position. If I'm hiring, today I'm hiring a cashier, tomorrow I'm hiring an IT person, and the day after I'm hiring a security guard. Yeah, I probably wouldn't ask them the same questions, and I wouldn't score them the same way, even if the question is the same. So that's why it's important to do it job specifically, and that's why it also gets a high score. Job knowledge tests are also high. That's basically theoretical tests around the job itself, and work samples are also quite high. That fell quite a bit from Schmidt and Hunter, and one of the theories is that it was high in Schmidt and Hunter. People thought that work samples were good. Work samples are, for instance, things like cases, which is very popular in a lot of recruitment, but because people are using it quite widely, the quality might have fallen a bit. So, but good cases properly related to the position with good scoring matrices are probably good.
Question, Stefan.
Yeah.
If I add 42 as a structured interview plus job knowledge test 40 plus work sample 33, I will get more than 100.
It's a great question, isn't it? Yeah. and that doesn't really work. When you use several of these, you will increase it, but it's not as simple as just adding them. Basically, you will add on whatever's not covered in the other one. So, and that's why as well, if you do many interviews, you actually won't get that much more predictive validity. This is called incremental validity. The incremental validity won't really increase that much. So that's why it's important to use several different tools in a recruitment process. And that was what Sackett and his co-authors found, was please use several tools, because it showed that just using one tool, even if you use that tool many times, 5 interviews, 6 interviews, it's not as efficient as using several tools to measure from different angles. The things you see in blue, those are the more generic metrics. The 2 highest ones there, cognitive ability tests and personality-based emotional intelligence, those are possible to do with tests, and they are quite high. The difference those have from the job-specific matrix is, of course, that the exact same test would go out to the exact same people. So there, the cashier the security guard, and the IT person would all get the same cognitive ability test, and the cognitive ability test would have some predictive validity across all of those positions. We see unstructured interviews there as well, have some predictability, but significantly lower than structured interviews, which shows that, yeah, probably better to just do structured interviews.
And I find the next one quite interesting, Stefan.
Yes.
Number of years of experience.
Yeah, and that's pretty much at 0. That does not mean that specific experience isn't important, but that if you purely look at the number of years, that is not a relevant predictor of future job performance. Remember, this goes both ways. In Norway, one big problem with discrimination is age discrimination, where older candidates are discriminated against. But you can also have the opposite, where younger candidates are not considered because they don't have the sufficient amount of experience in number of years. The important thing to remember here is that what's actually important is that they have the relevant skills. And you can be in a job for years and not gain new skills. And you can gain those new skills quite quickly without having the number of years. So the number of years are shown to not be relevant. And just to reiterate, that does not mean that you should go for people without experience. It means that you should go for the right people, whether they have a lot of experience or not that much experience. Finally, we see the 5-factor model underneath. The 5-factor model is the leading model for how personality works. And what they've basically done here is see how the different personality traits, how good they are at predicting job performance across all positions. The important thing to remember here is that this is across all positions. For a specific position, these might be higher, or research has shown that they're higher. If you want a good salesperson, then you have certain of these traits that are higher. Same with good police officers and so on. So if you link this to position-specific criteria, it will be different, but then it won't really work in a meta study.
But the clue is, this is the clue basically. The right person to the right job to the right person. This is what we are aiming for in everything we have talked about until now, isn't it?
Yeah. And here we see it goes slightly beyond just thinking about the process and how we do things. It's important to also remember, as we've talked about the candidate experience, for everyone, also the candidates who don't get the job, just to take a little aside there, the very best large organizations doing best practice recruitment, they actually do surveys to see the candidate experience for the candidates who didn't even apply, but that they wanted to apply. So you can really go into the nitty-gritty here. From a best practice recruitment standpoint and from the DNV standard standpoint, the important thing is to actually really consider the candidate experience. Privacy policy is really important, of course, both from an ethical side, but also from a legal side. That's where the legal side comes in as well. And the legal side, and this is now where we're talking to people from all over, that will be different from country to country. It might also be different for some of you guys who I know work with several different markets. It might be that in some markets, there are certain legal obligations you have to remember. And even if you're in one market, it might be different for some positions. In Norway, the legal requirements around recruiting for government positions are stricter than if you hire for private companies. And then finally, the importance of just having a comprehensive process. We've talked about having the standard is not a recipe, but having some sort of recipe when you're actually doing recruitment is extremely important. So the standard is not that, but when you do recruitment, it should be proper.
Yes, Dan, can you say something about the DNV and the English words?
Yes. So first of all, as you mentioned, Erik, we will make sure that a translated version of the Norwegian standard is made available to all of you, which will just sort of be an English translation. And then we are starting after the summer. Now we are very busy launching the new standard here in Norway and Sweden. So we want to kick off the updated exam. As soon as that is done, we are going to be working on making the DNV standard applicable, firstly maybe across Europe, and then we'll need to look internationally. And this requires more than just a translation. We need to consider how are we going to test knowledge with regards to legislation. Just as you said, Stefan, the legal aspects of recruitment are very important. So we need to find some way to formulate the requirement to the recruiter and a way that we can test that knowledge internationally. And you've mentioned already the EU Pay Directive. There are EU legislations. In the Norwegian version, we are quite specific because we can point to Norwegian legislation that we are fully aware of. But when we try and make this international, we need to sort of maybe attack this in a different way, more like the quality management system standards, the other ISO standards. They have a more sort of generic requirement formulation. So we are doing that. We are wanting to have a speedy process here. So, but I cannot promise anything. Hopefully towards the end of this year, or at the very latest Q1 next year, we hope to launch it. And we need to do this and have the certification exam in place at the same time. So when we launch the standard, we also want to offer the certification. And as in Norway, the exam will consist of two parts, a multiple choice part and a case where you have to sort of show more in-depth knowledge. The tentative cost there is just really, what does it cost in Norway today to become certified? What do we think the cost will be for Europe next year? Yeah, it's all the information will be shared once it's up and running. So
basically, the international standard a lot of the Norwegian standard will be the same, but we have to change where it's some legal references, etc.
Yes. So, and we want to make sure we do this in a good way, and we might need to bring in some experts into our certification committee that represent the perspectives of Europe or internationally. So there is a bit of work to be done, but it should be doable. Yes.
And for those who are not certified here now, what can you do? Yeah, you can use the standard. The Norwegian one will be translated. You can use it. You will see where it's a reference to the Norwegian market. That's maybe not applicable to your market, but it's not too much of the standard that is Norwegian. Most of it are global standards. But also the Norwegian persons in this meeting, some also are living in Norway, do recruitment in Norway, but speak English. Then it's a really good thing to have the English words. You can use it, you can read it, and try to follow it as good as possible. So we can start using it, and down the line, maybe we get also certified. Yes. So, Kristin.
Yes. I think at the end here, we will send out the English translation of the Norwegian version of the standard so that you can start. And we will also publish it on our website. There is a link there to our website, which is all in Norwegian. You can read all about the certification, the process, the requirements. If you use Google Translate on the web browser, then or any translation function, you should be able to get it in English. And as soon as we are ready to launch the English version, we will, of course, have an English site that we will share with the market so you can read all about it. And I'm pretty sure also when we launch it, there will be some promotions to get it kicked off. Yes.
Very good. Stefan?
Yep, I mentioned this briefly when we got started, but please get in touch with me if you want to have more information about what we do in Master, about the courses and the training for leading towards the DNV certification, or more in general about about our tools, I can put you in contact with the right person. Or if you're in Norway, then I'm more than happy to talk to you about this as well. Like we talked about with this certification, you can do courses to prepare you for the certification if you don't have enough experience. And as Eric briefly mentioned, it can be a good thing to do to avoid to make sure you pass, to say it like that, on the first try. But that's so just get in touch with that, and just a word this morning that our course is approved by DNB, so that's fine.
And from Sperton point, we can support on recruitment globally. If anyone wants to talk to us, please reach out to me or anyone else in Sperton, and we will have a chat about that. So that was what we had for today. The webinar is not set up for questions, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Stefan or Kristin later, and we will do our best to. Okay, so that was what we have for today. I'm happy that many wanted to join. We will share the presentation with all the attendees, and the recording will also be made available if other of your colleagues want to see this. Thank you. Have a great day and weekend when that comes, and see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.